Now, living in this house as a child, I didn't think of the house as anything but home. I knew it was beautiful, but the word elegant hadn't reached my vocabulary yet, and it was truly elegant. This room was kind of off limits to me. My piano sat there on that wall. And every now and then a hobo would come off the road and come up on the porch and scare the wits out of me at night. But living on the farm, everything was big. We had 2,500 acres. My great-great-grandfather, well, I didn't get upgrades then, Jamesy, built the house. And then when he was gone, the house sat empty for about 25 years, between 25 and 30 years, maybe even 30 and 40, I don't know. But my parents, when they were, my dad was 34, my mom was 30, was given the farm by my grandfather, whose father was Isaac A. Bonine. They moved in a fully furnished Victorian house. All the furniture was Victorian, all covered. And they went to work, uncovered everything, and I can hear them at 30 and 34 oohing and ahhing and laughing, and you know, it was beautiful. The furniture was beautiful. When I got about 25, and I had family of my own, I had about 5 kids, and I got to thinking about this house, and truly decided, yes, it was elegant. And I was a spoiled brat of the Bonine family, because I was raised alone. My brother was 10 years older than I was, and was in military school and went to Korea while I was growing up. I followed Dad every place he went, every place I could go with him. My mother wanted me to be a lady. I didn't want anything of it. So Dad started me riding horseback because I got on top of our perch-turn workhorse with my legs stuck out like this because he was so broad. Got a whipping the second time I did it, not a whipping, but a good spanking. The second time I did it, because he was afraid that I'd fall and the horse would step on me. He was in a stall. We went up the stairs. When I was really going to be punished, it was my time out on the top step. And he'd give me a time that I could get off my time. It was like 15 minutes. I had to sit on a stop step. Anytime I got bad. And like in some of the writing that I've done, Mike and Kathy have had me writing for the last 2 years. I gave all the holidays and how we decorated the house. And this year it was all the memories. Well, my memories go back a long way, because I had a grandmother who knew everything, I swear, about this farm. And she'd sit in a rocking chair with her stool in front of me, in front of her, sit me down there, and she'd tell me everything she could think of for me to remember. So when Kathy called me and said I needed to write my memories, I really had to bring them up. Some of the dates I don't think I got right, because as I was going back through the paperwork that I got, I'm kind of sure I'm off a few, but they're good close. And starting in 1934, I was born in the bedroom across the hall. My nursery was the little room behind it where the desk is. We didn't have indoor plumbing at that point in my life. We didn't have electricity yet. We were still walking around with candles and little lanterns and things like this until I was probably about 5 or 6. And all of a sudden we got electricity. Wow! Everything lit up. I started at 6 playing the piano. That took time away from the farm, and it kind of upset me because I had to come home from school, do my homework, and get on the piano. So on weekends, I was on the farm. My 2 jobs that I had, we had Dale Park with about 29, 30 elk in it, was take a horse, ride around the fence, make sure no trees would come down, because guess who would go over the fence? Then there's a picture in the dining room of my dad standing by the gate. So you know how high the fence was. And I had to do this after every storm we had, and once a month. My second job, yeah, I have jobs, was we had a little Ford tractor, and I was taught at 8 how to drive the Ford tractor. By the time I was 11, I was pretty good with the Ford tractor. And they put a hay trailer on the back, and I would carry water on the tractor, and we'd go out to the field, the tractor and I, with water. We'd bring back a load of hay. And there was always a man at the barn that was crossed over here. You see it on that picture. And they would make sure that the wagon was unloaded so that I could make my second trip. I went 3 times a day, making sure they had water and bringing back hay. Mom was really upset. Really upset. You should be wearing skirts, you shouldn't be wearing pants. I was being a lady. Well, as the farm bloomed, Dad's farming changed. He got more progressive as to what he was doing with his farming, making bigger money in a year. And now I gotta go my notes, wait a minute. My grandmother and her sister had moved in with us after my grandpa died. And when my folks took over the house, they had gone up to the second story. They'd uncovered all the furniture. But then when the first winter came, guess what? They couldn't keep the house warm. It was like living in a barn with high ceilings. Dad couldn't figure out what was going on because there was a fireplace in their bedroom, another fireplace out in the dining room, and we had a coal burning furnace in the basement. No heat. So Dad went up to the second story. He hadn't been up there. It said during a blizzard, and the blizzard blowing snow through broken windows. So he ended up having to plywood over all the windows, shut off the stairway, then the heat got bad. Living on the farm, you watch your dad go to work in the dairy. At that point, he wasn't in a state senator yet. He was actually working the farm, doing the disking, doing the plowing, doing the sowing with help of men, but he was in charge, big time in charge. And Dad's first big loss was he had a group of hogs that he was raising, breeding to sell. And this is from my grandmother now. This isn't something I saw. That the manager of the farm was Roscoe Cole. And he came and told Dad he better come down and look at the pigs, that they were getting sick and infecting other pigs. So he went down to the south barn, down here, 3 or 4 miles down, to the south barn, and he put, had the vet come out to check the pigs. They had cholera. And they had to kill all the pigs and burn their bodies and bury them. That was the first loss Dad had. And he just kept saying, I'm going to become a grain farmer. Well, he couldn't become a grain farmer yet because he had 125 milk cows. And we had a dairy. And they bottled their own milk. Kathy, didn't you say you got a bottle somewhere? And they had all of this going on, and one night, in 1942, I figured, because I was 9 years old. Somebody was pounding on the front, on the front door. And they told us the dairy barn was on fire. Well, Dad went flying out the door. Mom and I came out. She got me up because she was leaving me out in the house, not knowing what was going on. So I had to go with her down to Vandalia to the fire station, and at that time, you pulled the cord and the siren went off for the volunteers. Got back in time to see them moving all the cows into a pasture away from the barn. The barn was in full blaze. Dad had to go into the barn because he had 2 prize bulls. 2 prize Guernsey bulls. And he wasn't going to let them die in a fire. So he had a rifle, and he went in and he shot them. And when he came out, the thing I remember, this is what makes this memory stay with me, was him coming out of the barn with a gun. We knew he'd got shot to both, but he had to come out of the barn now. He walked out of the door and the roof went in. He was like seconds away from losing his life. And I will never forget that as long as I live, because I was crying. I thought my dad had died. I really did. That was in 42. Well, needless to say, we sold the cows. And that was the end of the dairy. They pasteurized milk, put them in the milk bottles, they were delivered to the people who wanted them. And it didn't take long for them to really realize, you know, we were going to become a grain farm. Dad sold all the cows. He started planting wheat, corn, alfalfa, rye. What else do you think? Anyway, he used all the grains you could think of. Soybeans when I was in my teens. Yeah,
Oats and
soybeans
barley
became a
probably.
thing.
Oats and barley.
Yeah,
That's what we grew here.
that he was a progressive farmer, and he pushed himself to learn as much as he could. He went to Michigan State College in agriculture. And so he wasn't dumb when he got the house. It was just, the farm was huge. And he had to work out how he was going to work all his fields so he didn't kill them. Well, needless to say, I went with him most of the time. I wouldn't stay in the house with Mom. She was always getting on me for not being a lady. And I didn't want to be a lady, I wanted to be a tomboy. So, anyway, in 1946, we had a bad thunderstorm. Lots of lightning. I mean, it was a scary storm. And M60 was made by them, and we had all these steel trucks going from Detroit to Gary, Indiana. Big rolls of steel, long sheets of steel. It was really something else. We had all gone to bed. Everything happened at night. We'd all gone to bed, and we were all of a sudden woke up like trucks honking their horns. Some of them had real loud horns, some of them had shrill horns. My brother was home on leave, and he was up in the back bedroom. He came to flying down the hall and up here to these windows. What was wrong was one of the pumps at the filling station had got hit and was on fire. So again, Mom and I got into the car, went to Vandalia to get the fire department. In the meantime, my brothers picked up the inside house, and we had a fire extinguisher back in the laundry. He took it over there, by the light of the fire, he's trying to figure out how to make the fire extinguisher work. And this truck driver walked right up to him and said, "Hey buddy, I don't think you really want to do that. Either get it going or back away." They brought, the truck drivers bought theirs off their truck. And the fire department got there, well, they got it all out, and all the truck drivers finally got back in their truck. I bet there were 13, 14 trucks lined up along the highway. Can you imagine that along 60? I mean, it was something else. Anyway, after that, Dad was elected to the Senate. In 43, he was gone. And he'd come home every other weekend. And our manager was Bosco Cope. We called him Shorty because he was short. He was running a farm. Dad would come home, go through the farm, all the fields, write down what needed to be done for the next 2 weeks. And that was how the farm kept going. Because Dad wasn't here. I was here with Grandma and Aunt Dolly. And Grandma really became a mother to me. But she also taught me how to crochet, how to embroider, how to knit, made sure I got my schoolwork done. Then all of a sudden my folks thought one year they would take me up to Lansing to live with them. They had a suite of rooms in the Oaks Hotel. Well, that was a fine idea. The only thing is, the Oaks Hotel was already old. And there was no ventilation. And all these people, all these men that lived in there were smoking cigars. And I had to go down to breakfast at 6 o'clock in the morning and eat, because I had to be at school at 7. Well, that didn't work because I could not do it. To this day, I can't stand cigars. It was just bad. So I came back home. I went to school in Vandalia until they consolidated the schools. Then I was picked up over here on the corner when the school consolidated by the bus and went to Castle. To school, graduated out of Castle. But the whole time that I was living on the farm, there was always something to do. I never got bored. And as the time got closer to graduation, I got in a lot of, what can I say, turmoil, because I had a senior recital coming. And I had about 6 pieces I had to play by. No papers, no music. I was practicing 3 hours a day. An hour before I went to school, 2 hours after I got home. And so therefore, horseback riding and everything went to the weekend for a while. That barn had a haymow. Now I'm going to tell myself, my dad never knew what happened. Up in the peak, there was a haymow and there was a door that slid open. Inside the barn, there was a chute that you pitchforked hay down to the horses. Well, a friend of mine and I decided we were going to go up the haymow. So we climbed up the ladder in the chute, got to the top. There was a rope up there because they would pick the hay up with this big fork off the wagon and put it into the thing. The mow was usually 3/4 until spring, and then it would be down low. But this time it was 3/4 full. We grabbed the rope at the top that the hay rake was on and pushed ourselves off of the chute, and we take the rope all the way down the other end on the pulley. Push off the other end and let go in the middle of the haymow.
How old were you then?
My dad never found out about that and been killed. Never found out about that. But I was always doing stuff like that.
How old were you at that time?
11, 12,
That's about right.
old enough to know better.
Too young to resist.
Sounds like fun to
11,
me.
12. But then things got kind of settled down because as I got 13, 14, 15, like I was busy studying school and practicing the piano. I had a teacher that lived in Niles. Her name was Jo Kelly. She had 2 Baldwin pianos, concert pianos, back to back in her living room. That's all it was in her living room. She would sit on that side and I would sit on this side. And I was to play exactly as she was playing. And if I didn't play like she was playing, I hadn't practiced. Your dad's not paying good money for you to be playing piano, not practicing piano. She always knew, always knew. Because if I flubbed up, that was it. But she was a beautiful pianist, and she taught me good. My dad wanted me to become a concert pianist. You don't become a concert pianist with short fingers. You have to scoot across the piano, and these fingers had to scoot because they couldn't go any as fast as somebody with long fingers. So I was good, but I wasn't great. And when I went to college in music, I soon found out playing against Juilliard people that there was no way I was going to be a concert pianist. I'm not competitive. So that was the end of that. I came back on business school. But in the meantime, Dad had sold the farm. And I was feeling really bad because I wanted the farm. Jim didn't want the farm. If we could have changed our genes, we'd been pretty good. But he didn't want the farm. I did. So the generation stopped when he sold the farm. And he knew it was the end of it. My dad was feeling pretty bad by the time he'd gotten the farm sold because he realized that that had been his livelihood all his life. But he also was in the legislature. He was director of Farmers Home Administration in Lansing. I don't remember how long now. But they moved to Lansing finally, and that was the end of coming here until 2004. And I had my reunion, my school reunion. And I drove myself up here from Florida. I had 5 kids at home. The oldest 2 were taking care of all the young ones. And when I decided, when I got up here, I drove past the house and turned around and went back to where we were having the reunion. And there was a big restaurant there just across the street. And Jim Hayden, who was a buddy, asked if I wanted to come see the house. He said, I got keys to the house. Do you want to go see the house? I said, I'm not sure I do because I've seen something coming past it that I didn't want to see. And he said, well, I'm going to take you out to the house. Well, he parked out in back, and we came around this side of the house. And I got a chance to look through these windows. And I said, Jim, I can't go in there. It's been trashed. It's trashed. I won't go inside. And burst into tears, and poor Jim didn't know what to do with me. he had to wait until I stopped crying before I could tell him what I wanted. So he finally got me settled down. And I said, isn't there some historical something that I can do? I said, I'll go up there and talk to them. I'll do anything I can to get that house going again. He said, about 2 weeks later, he said, blow up your pictures, bring them, send them to me. So, all these big pictures and a few more is what I sent up. Next thing I knew, I heard from the Underground Railroad. And I'm thinking, wow, that's a coincidence. And Kathy has been my back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Kathy has been a friend. And she'd repeat everything she had to Mike and the rest of them. Last 2 years ago, she had me write everything I could remember about Christmas. This year, I had all my memories I had of the farm. The one tragic thing that really happened, it was tragic to me. I went to Interlochen National Music Camp up by Traverse City. And in summer of '48, all of a sudden my brother showed up. Now my brother, who I thought was in Korea. And he wasn't in Korea. He was there to get me. And it wasn't time for the end of camp, and he didn't say a word as to why he came. All he said was, we need to go to Dr. Maddie's office. I said, okay. So what's going on? And he said, he'll tell you. Well, Dr. Maddie was good friends with my dad. And he told me what had happened to Dad. Dad had lost his arm in the hay bale. And they wanted me to come home. So Jim had come to get me. And Dr. Maddie had the pen counselors repacking my trunk. I think I'd been up there maybe 2 weeks. And we came home, and I tried to ask Jim questions. I said, is Dad okay? He wouldn't answer. Finally, I said, is Dad dying? He said, no, he's not dying, but he's hurt. And he'll be home by the time we get home. And you and I got a job. You and I are left-handed, and we've got to teach him how to do things with his left hand. He couldn't eat with his right hand, without his right hand. And I said, well, how are we going to do this? And he said, well, we'll figure it out. He got me home. Dad was home. And they had gotten an arm for him with a hand that he could work. No, the fingers didn't work, the thumb worked. Then he also had a clamp that he could put on that arm. That clamp emotionally hurt my mother. She couldn't handle that clamp. And that clamp was for him to use when he was working. So he would leave the house with his hand on and take off the hand and put the clamp on and go to work. We had a snowstorm, about like Kathy explained to me from this last winter. Snow. Dad was trying to get out to the garage. He was shoveling the path and he forgot to put his clamp on. But it was in November. We were getting ready for Thanksgiving, so Mom and I were in the kitchen with Grandma working on Thanksgiving thing. Dad came in laughing his head off. Mama, I broke my thumb. And handed her his thumb. Well, that was, Mom never complained about that clamp again. But there were fun times. Lots of fun times, especially at Christmas. We'd go out and get a Christmas tree out of the woods. Bring it in. They always planned to put it in here. Well, the Christmas tree wouldn't fit in there. So it always ended up in that corner. But it would be as high as the ceiling. So in order to get the tree here, they'd wrap it, they'd cut it down, wrap it with your rope, take the tractor out and pull it in. Then it had to sit for 2 days before we could even think about putting anything on it, because the limbs were all uptight. Every room in this house was decorated. Every room. Their bedroom was decorated, the den was, the office in there was a den after it was my nursery. Dad would not come in here with his work clothes. And he hated that furniture. He did not like sitting in this room at all. So he made a den for himself in there with a davenport and a good easy chair. And that's where we listened to the radio, as long as the radio was still the thing. When TVs came out, we got a red TV. You couldn't get any color on it, it was red. It was a little bit like when the lights came on, all of a sudden it got bright in here. But, anybody got any questions?
What did you decorate the tree with? What did you decorate your Christmas trees with? Did you have electric lights? Did you have
We had
glass
lights,
ornaments?
clothes. We made chain. One year we made popcorn, but it made such a good mess by the time the popcorn all fell off the string, and Mom said, no more popcorn. We had all kinds of decorations. Mom would go into Detroit, into South Bend. And at Christmas time, a lot of times we went to Chicago to shop. We went to Van Fields. And we lived really, or it was Hudson, maybe in Hudson, I don't know. When I was 16, I took a defensive driver's course. My dad wouldn't let me drive his car. I already had driver's training. So he took me to Niles to a defensive driving course. So I take this, I'm supposed to be able to handle anything, right? The next month, we went to Chicago. I had to drive the loop of Chicago at 5 o'clock to prove to him that I could drive his car. What my birthday? Do you think I'd ever gotten to drive again? But yes, they decorated New with balls and all kinds of things. We had a topper on top. We had to cut some off the top in order to put top on. But it was always a beautiful tree. And like I said, there were bottles all up and down the rail, and the stairway. There were big huge wreaths on the front door. Has anybody wondered why we have 2 sets of doors at the entrance? Think about it.
You did?
Why would we have 2 sets of doors?
In the South, it was so that it would accommodate the women's skirts.
It was to keep that second set was always closed.
Oh, that way, yeah, it was like a
That set
The
was
winter
always
doors, yeah.
closed. The front door was,
That
you
you
could
had
come in.
double doors.
But then you had to open the second set. It was to keep the coldness out of the
Yeah.
house.
How was the house in the summer? Was it cool? Was it hot?
But
How was the house in the summer?
how was the house in the
Was
summer?
it cool? Was it easy to keep cool?
There's a picture. The very top picture where Jim's on the line has a trailer. In the summer, every window in the house had a screen. And every window in the house was open. So that we had direct air coming in all the time. We didn't have air conditioning. You got hot, you got hot.
How old were you when you left the house? My woman, how old were you when you left this house?
How old were you when you left the house?
How old was who?
You, how old were you when you
How
left
long
the
did you live
house?
here?
1934.
Very short.
That's when you have,
Very
When I
short.
left the house, I was 17. I stayed my whole school years. Then I went to Ann Arbor, to the university, for a year. But I couldn't handle a competition of music with Juilliard too. And that was competition. We were competing for instructors, we were competing for recital, trying to get a place to practice. They didn't make schedules, you just went to the practice rooms and prayed you could get a piano. And it's really funny, because after I got married, in our church we had 2 young girls who played the clarinet. and they got to go to a solo and ensemble with the state. Who did they come to play for me? So I played for them. And we went to Tallahassee, and we couldn't get a place to practice at all. It was like, we'd been practicing every day at their house or my house. But we get to Tallahassee and the practice rooms are so full that we were playing by ear. And those girls were they were like 14, 15. They were so scared that they were going to make a mistake. And I said, don't worry, if you skip something, I'll skip too. And if I heard them skip a note, I'd skip with them. The only person that knew was the judges, but they all got excellence. So I had points that I gave them for me playing, and they had points. And the one time that I went for a girl in Bell, the band director called me the day before we were supposed to leave. And the person that was supposed to play for this girl had backed out. She was afraid to take it to stay. And he called me at the house, and I went in to see him, and he said, do you think you can play this music? And I looked at the music, and I said, let me sight read and see if I can play it, if I can get the rhythm right. Because there was a lot of rhythm in it. It took me 2 hours, and I got down pat and took her and got her an excellent. So, you know, my piano playing was a part of the farm. My living on the farm was the history of the farm. I knew what went on in that carriage house from the time I was a little girl. And I knew that they were going to be protected. What they didn't know was what they were going to get for it. They got food, clothes, shoes, because half of them were barefooted. And it had come many, many miles that way. Some of them were starving. Some of them had little kids with them. And he took them in, fed them, clothed them, put shoes on their feet. They stayed up in the top of that building for as long as they needed to get the rest that they needed. He gave them 1 acre of land. He had 1,500 acres. He gave them 1 acre of land, and it became Ramp Town. I don't know how much you've all learned about Ramp Town, but it became Ramp Town. And eventually, it became Cal. I knew all these people. I don't recognize them now. In fact, I don't recognize anybody here. I'm like, okay, I knew my granddaughter, she's sitting there with her mouth open at me. By the way, sit down here, come out.
Hi. I'm here.
That's Adanya. She's Bob's daughter. She lives in Alaska. And she flew down yesterday after working how many hours?
Oh, I don't know. I work 12-hour shifts.
She's an RN. She flew down to O'Hara, got a car, and is heading this way. In the meantime, Bob and I are heading from the south to the north. Bob said, Mom, we're 49 miles away. She was about 50 minutes away. We told her we'd meet her at the motel in Dowagiac. We drove into the motel park. Bob said, here she comes. And she came around the curve to the motel. And sure enough, she was, I don't know how we did that, because that day, yesterday was a bad day driving. My GPS put me on the wrong highway, and the wrong highway was being under construction. that we messed with.
Do you recall a gardener that used to take care of the yard here?
Do you read, Mary Charlotte, she's asking about the gardener that worked here, the gardener that took care of the gardens, the Japanese family? Did you talk about
We
that?
had a Japanese family that Dad brought. Remember when the American Japanese were being put in concentration camps? Okay, I don't know exactly how Dad got this family, but he brought a Japanese family to live. We had a tenant house north of here. It's not there anymore, it's gone. And he moved them in there. There was a husband, wife, grandma, and 3 kids. I can't remember the little girl's name. So it was Clarence and I can't remember the name. But it was Roy and Harvey. I said the name today once. Anyhow, they went to school in Vandalia. And for a while I was riding a bike to Vandalia, and then I got to walking to Vandalia because there were 4 of us walking. But they lived with us for, it was in the 40s. And they didn't stay for long. They stayed for a while, and then they found themselves someplace else to live. But these were things that my parents would do. You know, and how they got a hold of this family, I have no idea. Because we didn't have any relation in California.
Did you have a gardener that worked, is that the gardener that worked here? Okay, all right, that's it.
He did the garden. We had another man that did all the raking up of the needles out here because we had 1 million trees, pine trees in the side yard. And we had the help. The help was here. Dad paid for help. He took care of his help. Always. Thanksgiving, he got a basket. Christmas, they all got a basket with a present in it. And that was all the help that we had. We'd go out and deliver baskets. It was a cool life, it really was. Memorial Day, we gathered all the flowers that we could get out of the backyard, put them in buckets in the back of our car, and go to all the cemeteries where we had family. There's a big lot of Bonines and Miles, and there's also a big lot of Gages, and that was my grandmother's maiden name in Miles. And then there was my grandmother Jones's family down in Mason. So we had 3 cemeteries to go to every time Memorial Day came along. We had lilacs and peonies, we had all kinds of flowers. Everybody got a beautiful bouquet.
How old were you? How old were you when you got married?
How old was I?
When you got married, how old were you?
I was 19. I was back home. I had come home in Lansing and went to business school and met my husband there. And my dad wasn't too pleased because he wasn't a college kid. He was just out of the Navy 5 years, a little rough around the edges. So Dad wasn't very happy about that. His mom was worse. But I married him, I had 5 children. I have Bob, and I have a daughter, Debbie, and I have a daughter, Lori. I have a son, Mike, and a daughter, Mary Ann. I was ready to quit having kids after they had 4. I had 2 boys and 2 girls. I said, okay, that's it. We moved to Florida. And yes, I was on contraception. And I had another baby. Every time I moved, I had kids. I think it's in the water. But we had a very lively family. The kids all play ball, they all were in Boy Scouts, the girls are all in Girl Scouts. They play ball. The Little League and Miss America kept us at the fields all the time when we had to split up because we had games together. One at one in the field and one at the other field, we'd split and go wherever we had to go. I've had a fast life. When you have 5 kids, it doesn't settle down very soon.
So where did you live the longest?
Huh?
Where did you live the longest?
Where did I live the longest?
Yeah.
I lived in Florida the longest.
Okay.
I lived in Bay City when Bob got out of college. Dad dared Bob to go to college. I mean, he literally dared me. And so he went to Michigan State, and that was when we did not have any money at all. So I went from this to a 35-foot trailer with Bobby and pregnant with Debbie. Living in a trailer court out in East Lansing. But I was 19. Well, we got married.
When this was an operating farm, was it animals and crops, or what was grown or produced here on the farm? Or on the land here?
What did you grow? What did you grow on the farm?
Wheat, a lot of wheat. Corn. When soybeans became the thing, remember when they used soybeans in hamburger rather than hamburger? That became the thing. Alfalfa. Rye. What's the little one? I can't remember what it was.
And earlier she said they had.
They became a grain
pigs
farm.
and cows, but they were destroyed by fire. So well, the cows were and the pigs got sick. So they eventually went from animals to crops.
I'll tell you what, if you go on your computer, you'll get this.
Yeah, all her memories are on our website. So please take a brochure, it's urscc.org. Just go to the Bonine House. Actually, you have your own page, don't you? I haven't looked at it.
I just found out it was there.
Yeah, we just did it. We just did here. So all her memories are on there, and these pictures are also on there. So.
Actually, I feel very fortunate. I'm going to be 80 years old this next week. And yes, I remembered everything about the farm. And I think it's because the farm was so important to me. And everything her grandma told me stuck. It didn't go away. I could have lost it all when I had a stroke, but I didn't. All I did was I had a left-hand stroke. And the only thing I thought I was going to lose was my piano. And when I got home and went to the piano, my brain and my left hand would not coordinate. So I went back to basics with runs, saying each letter of the key, went into chords, saying on letters of the keys, until I got so that I could run around, go up the hill. I'm playing at my church. And that's been my life.
That's determination.
I went up to Alaska with Adanya when she was a little girl, about this big. All my memories and all my things, Kathy's brought back.